service registration and discovery, Spring Cloud dependencies, 3 services. Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to Think Constructive. I am Isha. In this session, I will be talking about service registration and discovery for microservices. So I will start right from the beginning. What is service registration and discovery? Why is it so important with a real-time example? And that will be followed by the detailed demonstration. So there will be a live coding demonstration and the session agenda is getting displayed on your screen right now. So this is all we are going to cover today. This will be a detailed session. So don't skip and don't leave the session in between. Watch till the end. I would also highly recommend to do the entire coding along with the session. That is going to be extremely helpful for you. All right, so let us quickly start with the detailed discussion on service registration and discovery now. Let us quickly have a look on microservices example app, the app which we are creating as a part of microservices tutorial. So we are developing a fictitious social media application wherein we are considering to have microservices as user profile, post and notification. Although there are many more services in social media application, but we will be focusing on user post and notification service. And this is the typical architecture for that microservice. All right. So we have already done 2 sessions on microservices. So just in case if you have missed watching those sessions, details are getting displayed on your screen right now. And also links are tagged in the above card sections as well as in the description box below. So you can go ahead and watch those sessions. Those are going to be very helpful for building fundamentals of microservices for you. All right. For now, I will be proceeding with this example app. So what is the example app detailing? So this is the detailing of the example app, what we are building. So we are building 3 microservices. One is user, which is taking input as user ID and giving the output with user details, list of posts created by that user and list of notifications of that user. So finally, that user service is interacting with post service with post ID and getting the post detail in return, and also interacting with notification service by giving notification ID and getting back notification details as a response. All right. So what we have done, we have built these 3 services. All right. So service registration and discovery. So let us first understand what do we mean by service registration and discovery. So here is an example to understand this mechanism in detail. Let's take an example of a mall. So generally what happens, we go to mall and at the entrance or at the basement or ground floor, there is a map for that mall, which is telling you which all shops are available in that mall and what are the addresses of those shops. All right. So that means that map is acting as an address book which is informing any visitor about the availability of shops and their addresses. That means, let's say visitor 1 is coming to mall. He's just checking that map or that address book, getting the address of shop 2. Let's say he wants to visit shop 2, getting the address of shop 2 and directly visiting there, right? Makes visitor 1's life easy. Similarly for visitor 2 or n number of visitors, right? So imagine if there is no address book, then what happens? These visitors need to look for the entire mall, all floors, all shops in order to get into their desired shop. All right. So that means any existing shop we are expecting to be registered in this address book. And if there is any new shop, let's say in our example, shop 5 is a new shop which has come up. So this shop should register itself in the address book, right? So that visitor can find out this shop and visit it. So any new shop which is coming up should register itself in the address book, and this address book is working as a central system in order to record all the addresses and give the information to the visitors. All right. Now on the similar line, let us have a look on service registration and discovery in our software or in our microservices world. So in our current example, we have 3 services called as user service, post service and notification service. right? So this address book, you can notice it's replaced now by discovery server, correct? So this discovery server is something or is a place which is going to have the addresses of all the services which are new or existing. All right. That means if this post service has come up, it should register itself in the discovery server. Similarly, this notification service and user services should register themselves in this discovery server. And what happens? Now in our example, let's say this user service wants to query this post service. What this user service will do? Will talk to discovery server now, will get the address of this post service and directly query the post service. Similarly, this user service now wants to talk to notification service. What will it do? It will get the address of notification service from discovery server and then will go ahead and talk to notification service. All right. So this is about service registration and discovery. So this discovery server is a place which is acting as an address book and holding the addresses of all the services. And when services wants to interact with each other, they will talk to discovery server, get the address and will further establish the required communication. All right. I hope this concept is now clear. And now we will proceed and have a look on what discovery service we are going to use for the server activities as well as for the client activities. All right. So now for the service registration and discovery, there are libraries which are already developed by Netflix, because I hope all of you must be knowing about Netflix as an end user. And we should also know that Netflix were the people who really worked very, very hard in order to develop microservices and whatever required library packages they had developed, many of those packages they had made open source. That means free for use for everyone. From all those libraries or packages, Eureka library is the one which is also developed by Netflix for the service registration and discovery purposes, and this is now available with the Spring Cloud, right? That means if you are doing development or rather microservices development and want to use service registration and discovery library, you can directly use Eureka by just including Spring Cloud dependencies. All right, so next I am going to demonstrate how to include all those dependencies, how to create Eureka Server and Eureka Clients, and how to establish communication between these services using Eureka Server and Client. All right, so don't go anywhere. Stay connected because next I am starting with the demonstration for all these stuffs. All right. So now let's open a Spring Initializer. Okay. With the help of a Spring Initializer, let us create a project for Eureka Server. All right. So I'll just say Java is a language, project, build project Maven. Okay. And Spring Boot, let's say 3.0.0 group. I'll say com.think constructive. All right. Artifact, let it be Eureka Server. Okay. And we'll say description as, let's say, Eureka Server demo. Eureka Server demo project. Okay. Cool. Yeah, let Java be 17 packaging jar, and let us now, the most important thing, we will include dependencies. So I will just type Eureka. Okay. And the first one, what we are seeing, Eureka Server, Spring Cloud Discovery. This is what we want to have in order to establish Eureka Server. All right. So we have taken this Spring Cloud. You can notice the name Netflix Eureka Server. I'll just say generate. And you can see the zip is downloaded. Now the next thing, I will extract this zip and load it in the editor. All right. So I have loaded Eureka Server in my IntelliJ IDE editor. So for the remaining demonstration, I am going to use IntelliJ IDE editor. You can use any other Java editor of your choice. All right, so here is the Eureka server folder which is extracted and loaded in the editor. Here you can see there is a src folder and most importantly pom.xml. So first let us analyze pom.xml, which all dependencies it has included, and then we'll move forward. All right. So here in the pom.xml, let us first have a look on what all dependencies it has extracted. You can notice in the properties Spring Cloud version, it has taken as 2022.0.0.rc2. Alright, Java version remains 17. And down below you can see inside dependencies, the first dependency is org.springframework.cloud. So that means cloud dependency is included, and the artifact ID is Spring Cloud Starter Netflix Eureka Server. So it is a product of Netflix, which is now part of Spring Cloud, and the server name is Eureka Server. So this is precisely the Eureka Server dependencies, which is included inside dependencies tag. All right. Remaining dependency is our Spring Boot starter test. And another point to be noticed here, inside dependency management, you can see the group ID is org Spring Cloud. Artifact ID is Spring Cloud dependencies, and version is whichever version we are giving above in the properties section. So Spring Cloud.version, and here you can see spring.cloud.version is 2022.0.0-rc2. So this is the Spring Cloud version which is included. So these many dependencies we are needing in order to bring up our Eureka server. All right, now let us see inside src. There is a main Java, our typical structure, and you can see Eureka server application. All right, it is annotated with the Spring Boot application because ultimately all these projects are a Spring Boot project, and their extended support with the Spring Cloud Eureka server. All right, so in order to enable Eureka server in this project, we should put our annotation as Eureka server. So it will be enable Eureka server annotation. The moment we put this annotation, now this application is treated as a Eureka server application. So two things, dependencies in pom.xml and the annotation in our starting point of our Spring Boot application. All right. So now let us quickly bring up the application and see what happens. We'll check whether Eureka server is up and running, which port, what all changes if needed we should be doing. All right. So now you can see Tomcat started on port 8080 because our underlying default server is Tomcat only and its default port is used. All right. So updating port to 8080. So what we should be doing, since it is a local host on which I have bring up the application. Okay. So what I should be doing, I should be checking the application on localhost port 8080. Okay. So let us go back to the browser and see what happens. I will just say localhost 8080, enter. What am I seeing here? At localhost port 8080, Spring Eureka server is up and running. Okay. And here are some basic parameters which are given. All right. Okay, so status is up. Fine. Now, since my other applications are using this default port, so if I would want, I can change the port of this Eureka server or my applications, whichever I would prefer. So for this demonstration, I am going to change the port of Eureka server. Okay, I'm back to IntelliJ IDEA editor, and here in the logs, you can see so many errors also, and so I will also tell you how to suppress these errors, unwanted warnings, messages and all. Okay, so I'll just terminate the server. So my server is terminated. Okay, and let us first of all change the server port. So what I should be doing inside our application.properties. So here inside application.properties, I will just say server.port is equal to, let's say 8999. All right. And also one more thing we should understand, that whenever Eureka server comes up, it tries to register itself also to the server. So that means at the same point of time, this is acting as a Eureka client also. That is where it was showing so many errors. So if you want to get rid of from those warnings or error messages, there are two more properties you should be writing in application.properties. All right. So I will just say Eureka dot client dot register with Eureka, right? So this is the default property true. I will make it as false. So it won't register anymore. And one more property that I should be writing is Eureka dot client dot fetch registry is equal to again false. So no more need of registration and fetching. Just a typo. Yeah. So Eureka client register with Eureka is false. Eureka client fetch registry is also false. Fine. So now let us again bring up the server and check the Eureka server port on which it is now up and running, and everything else is sorted or not. All right. I'll just save and bring up the application again and let us see what happens. So my server application is now coming up. Okay. And you can notice no more extra error messages or warnings are shown, and also Tomcat started now on port 8999. That means I should be able to see the Eureka server up and running on port 8999 and not on port 8080. So I'll come back to Chrome window or any browser of your choice. Let me just try 8080. No more server is up and running. I'll just say 8999 and we'll see. So what is happening here? Now my Eureka server is up and running on 8999 port, right? You can see status as up. Currently you can see no instances available because we haven't yet bring up any other client application. So no Eureka client applications are registered with the server. That is where it is showing that no instances are currently registered with Eureka. All right. So now next thing, I will open our user post and notification services, and one by one we'll mark them as Eureka client. All right. So first of all, I will bring up post service and will show you what changes you need to do in order to make it work like Eureka client. All right. So here is the post service which we have built in our previous session. So just in case you missed watching them, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and watch them. And also let me know if you want these microservices code. I'll go ahead and put it in the GitHub and share the link with you guys. All right. So in our post service, what we have done, we build our post model class, post controller, wherein we expose the get API and post service application, which is a starting point for this application. All right. In application.properties, we had changed the server.port to 8081. That means this post service will run on port 8081. Now let's go ahead and see the changes, what we need to do in order to mark this service also as a Eureka client. All right. So here is the pom.xml. In this pom.xml, first of all, we should be including our Spring Cloud version. Okay. So I'll just copy paste the property ID here along with the version ID. Okay. So here is a Spring Cloud version. In the dependencies section, what dependency do we need in order to make it as Eureka client? Just down below this is Spring Boot Starter Web. I'll paste the dependency which will tell that this should be the Eureka client. All right. So what we have done, dependency group ID is org Spring Framework Cloud because this is part of the Spring Cloud. And inside artifact ID, you can see Spring Cloud Starter Netflix Eureka Client. All right. There is one more change we should be doing. We have entered the cloud version, and also we need to include the dependency management, which is very specific to Spring Cloud. All right. So here I have pasted dependency management tags, and inside this group ID, again, org Spring Framework Cloud. Artifact ID will be Spring Cloud Dependencies. Version is $ inside curly braces. Spring-cloud.version. So version ID, it will pick from the properties above which we have mentioned. Type will be POM because we are using Maven build, and the scope is import. So it will be importing all the dependencies related to a Spring Cloud Eureka client in your current project. All right. And properties, you can notice Spring Cloud version we have mentioned here. All right. So now let us do a Maven refresh so that it picks up the required changes. Okay. And won't show this error anymore. Yeah. So dependencies are refreshed. There is a green tick here, you can notice. And now the error is gone. That means it has picked up all the relevant dependencies of Eureka Client. All right. Now there is one more change we should be doing in this post service application code. We should be putting the annotation of Eureka, enable Eureka Client. All right. So now after doing these changes, this service is marked as Eureka Client. That means whenever this service will come up, it will try to find out Eureka server and will register itself there. All right. Having said that, if I had given that Eureka server on the default port, there is no more changes needed. But what we have done, we have changed the default port of our Eureka server. That means I should explicitly mention it in this service that where the Eureka server is up and running. Those changes we should be doing in application.properties. All right. So inside application.properties, what I'll be mentioning, I'll say Eureka.client.service URL dot default zone is equal to http localhost whatever is my Eureka server port. I have given this localhost because my Eureka server is up and running on the same local machine. You can give the IP or host name wherever your Eureka server is up and running, right? And the port, what change port I have given? 8999. All right, /Eureka. Okay, so this is the service URL I have given, which mentions the designated IP and port or host name or port of the Eureka server. Fine, so this URL you should be mentioning. I'll just save. So let's go ahead and bring up this post service application and let's see what happens. So my service is up and running and you can notice it is up on port 8081, and also you can notice one more log here, discovery client registration status 204. That means it is successfully registered. HTTP status 200 family is a success family. All right. So now let us go back to the browser window and see what changes happen in this up and running Eureka server. So let me just refresh and you can see some application is registered here. Okay. But since I have not yet given any application name, so it is giving me unknown. Okay. So if I want that it should show me post service or some reasonable name that I should be able to identify which service instance is this. How should I do that? I should go back and give the service name. Okay, so let me just terminate the server. And again, in this application.properties, I should be giving spring.application.name is equal to, let's say in this case, I want to call it as post service. Okay, I will save and again bring up the application and see what happens. My service is up and running and you can see this time discovery client underscore post service is mentioned here. Earlier it was unknown. This time it is post service. All right. So now let us go back to browser window again and refresh and see the changes. So this time you can notice inside this application post service is mentioned instead of unknown, because unknown, how can you understand? There can be n number of instances for multiple services registered with Eureka. So if you would like to see and identify which instance belongs to which service, there should be a proper service name or application name must be displayed here. This is what we have done just now. All right, now let us go back and bring up another service application, which is our notification service. Okay, and we will do these changes there as well. So here is our notification service. In this notification service, what we have developed: notification model class, notification controller. Again, here a get mapping is exposed, and notification service application, which is a starting point. Similar changes we should be doing here. So I'll come to pom.xml, and first of all, I should include the properties, which is our Spring Cloud property here. Okay. Then I will go down, and just down below Spring Boot Starter Web, I should be writing my Eureka Client dependency. All right. And after dependencies tag is closed, I must include my dependency management, indicating the Spring Cloud version, build tool, and the required details. Okay. We had already discussed this. I have just pasted the required code here. I would save it. Okay, we'll do a Maven refresh, and my dependencies are here. Cool. Now I will go to the application.properties and we'll see, is there any server port mentioned? No, that means my notification service is running on the default port 8080, which is okay. I will open my notification service application and will put the annotation, which is Eureka, enable Eureka Client. Okay, so now this service will also act as the Eureka Client. One more thing, inside application.properties, let us put these two properties, which we had done with our post service also. So here inside application name, we will write notification hyphen service, and Eureka server URL will remain as is. Okay, we will save it. So we have done all the required changes, and now this time we will bring up the notification service application also, and we'll see what happens. So notification service is up and running. You can notice the port is 8080 and discovery client underscore notification service. All right, so this is registered. Registration status is 204. We'll go back to the browser window. We'll refresh and see the changes. See, now this time two applications are registered: notification service and post service. All right. Similar changes we should be doing with our user service, so that will also act as the Eureka client. So here is our user service. In this user service, we created notification model, post model, user model, user controller, which is finally exposing the get user details or get API, and also querying my post and notification services. Okay. User service application, which is a starting point for the Spring Boot application. Inside application.properties, you can notice we have given server port as 8082. We will do the required changes. First of all, let's do the changes in pom.xml. Okay, so the first change is including the properties of Spring Cloud. Where should we be doing that? Inside properties tag, this one. Okay. And just down below Spring Boot Starter Web, we must be writing the Eureka Client dependency. So I have pasted that as well. And down below dependencies tag, we must be writing dependency management. All right. So required changes I have done here in the pom.xml. We'll refresh Maven dependencies. Cool. Yeah, everything is refreshed. Now let us come back to user service application and make this as Eureka. Enable Eureka Client. All right. Now let us come back to application.properties. So server port is 8082. That means this service is running on port 8082. Okay. And we will include two properties here also, which we have done for post and notification service. So I'm giving this service name as user-service, and Eureka server URL will remain the same. All right, so all the required changes I have done. Here one more thing we should be doing. Since this user service is finally querying post and notification service, consolidating all the responses here and returning the final details back to the user or someone who is requesting these details. So till now what we have done inside this get user, this post with the help of REST template is querying post service on the local host and port, right? But we should make it independent from the IP or particular host name. That is where we are doing all this service registration and discovery. All right. So what we should be doing here, since we have given our post service a name and that service name is registered with Eureka server, that means that particular name I must be giving here as well. So I have given post-service. All right. And no need to give any specific port. You'll just give the service name or application name here, and whenever the service would need that, it will go ahead and query Eureka server. Eureka server, with the help of this unique service name, will find out further address of the service and give this address back to the requester, which is in this case user service, right? And further this service will be able to talk to post service. Similarly, I should be doing changes here in the notification. So what is my notification service name? So I'll be pasting this name here. All right. So now there is no hard coding of any IP hostname or port here. Rather, this is independent from any kind of hard coding, because as we discussed, this is the problem we precisely face when we give the hard-coded IP port or host name. The problem comes in whenever there is any code change or any IP or any new port, host, you need to do all those code changes and redeploy everything. All right, and there are many more problems which arises with the fixed URL. So what we have done, we have made it independent from all that. Okay. So whenever there is any IP port, host name or those kind of changes, this service will have, it will register itself anyways in the Eureka server, and Eureka server will resolve all those IP, host name or port details and give the final address to the requester. Fine. So requester is independent from all those things. This is what the beauty of service registration and discovery, because this will make your system more robust and scalable. Fine. So I have done the required changes here, and finally I'll bring up this user service application and let us see what happens. Are we able to query the required details or not? So you can notice in the log, see, updating port to 8082, that means user service is up and running on port 8082, and you can notice discovery client underscore user service. That means is the name it has taken and registered itself with the Eureka server. You can see registration status as 204. Fine. I'll go back to the browser window and we'll see what changes we are able to notice in Eureka server. You can now see there are 3 services registered with the Eureka server: notification service, post service and user service. Okay, and notification service, since it is running on the default port, so that is not displayed, whereas post service and user services ports are not default, so those are also displayed here. Fine. So all the requested services, all the Eureka clients are now registered with Eureka server. Now let us make one more call, that is from user service. I want to get the user details, which is internally calling post and notification services also. Let us see whether we are able to get it now or not. Okay. So I will say localhost colon 8082, because this is where my user service is running, /user/1. Why am I giving /user/1? Because let me show you. in the user controller, my URI is exposed to /user, and one I'm giving it as user ID. All right. Enter. So you can notice this user service is capable now to give the user details along with the user ID, user name, user phone number, including post details as well as notification details. So this is what we wanted. And again, to reiterate, this user service, let us go back to the controller. Yeah, so in this user service, you can now see there is no more hard coding of any IP, host name or port, rather just a service name we have given. Okay, and everything else is taken care by Eureka Server and Eureka Client. Now let us move towards the last part of this session, that is creating multiple instances of post and notification service. Okay, and see the application behavior and how does it get registered to Eureka Server. All right, so I'll first open post service. The first step for doing that is creating the jar of the application or the respective service and then deploy those jars to the different ports. Right, so this is the post service. First of all, what I will do, I will open terminal directly from here, or you can do it from the command prompt also, and I will create a jar for this service. How do I do that? I will just make use of Maven package goal. Okay, say enter. So what is it doing? It started creating the jar of this service and it will place the jar inside target folder. All right. So it has created the jar. Okay, because I'm getting build success. Now I will go ahead and check it inside target. So you can see inside target folder, I'm getting a jar, post service 0.0.1 snapshot jar. All right, similarly, I should be doing this for our notification service. So before doing that, I will just bring up this post service application on its regular designated 8081 port. All right. I will now move to notification service. Okay, we'll terminate its server, open the terminal from here and build its jar also. Again, the same stuff. I will say mvn package. So what this will do? This will create jar inside notification services target folder here. Okay. So once I will get this build success message, we'll go ahead and check inside target folder. We should be able to see the jar. So build success. I will now open its target folder and see inside the target folder, I am able to see notification service snapshot jar. All right. I'll again bring up this service on its designated 8080 port. So now my post and notification services, one each instance is running on the given port. All right. I want to bring up one more instance of post service as well as one more instance of notification service. So I'll switch back to terminal. I'm already inside post service folder. I'll just show you the path or we'll show you the content. So inside target, I should be able to see my jar file. You can see here it is. Okay. So now next thing, I should be deploying this jar so that one more instance of post service should be up and running. All right. So what is the command for that? I will just say Java space -d Dserver.port. Okay. Is equal to whichever port ID I would want. So let's say for post service, I want one more instance on 8083. Sorry, 82 I'm already using, 8083. Space -jar because I want to deploy jar and then the jar name. What is my jar name? Post service snapshot jar. I'll press enter. Let us see if we get success message here. See, post service started at port 8083 and what is the registration status for post service? 8083 204. So that means this instance is up and running successfully and also registered with Eureka Client. Similarly, I will go inside this notification service folder. Again, we will check the path. We will check the content. I will switch to target directory and we'll see what all we have. We have notification service snapshot jar here, right? So similar stuff. I'll just give java -d server.port, whichever port I would want to give. Let's say 8084. Okay. Space -jar. Then my jar name, right? Enter. So what has happened? Updating port to 8084 for notification service and its registration status is 204. That is, it is successfully registered with Eureka server. All right. So let us now open our Eureka server and see what is there. So this is my Eureka server. Okay, let me just zoom it in. So here inside Eureka server, I'll just refresh. And what am I seeing here? User service, only one instance. But for post and for notification service, I'm seeing 2 instances each. All right. Now let us try to make this call again. That means querying my user service, whether it is able to get me the desired output or not. I'll just refresh. See, I've refreshed. I'm able to get the things, right? Let's say for user ID 2, I'm able to get the desired stuffs. Fine. So this is what we wanted. That means with multiple instances up and running, fine, there is no impact on my user service. That means it is the responsibility of my Eureka server to resolve and give me the desired address, and I am able to communicate. Fine. So this was the last part of this session. What all we have covered today, let's have a quick recap of this session. So we started with what is service registration and discovery with the help of a real-time example, which is followed by Eureka server and client, what it is. Then we have seen how to create Eureka server, how to create Eureka client. We enabled Eureka at user post and notification services. Then we have seen how multiple instances of post and notification services can be created and then will be registered with Eureka server. And finally, we tested with one instance as well as with multiple instances up and running. All right. So I hope this session was really helpful for you. If you have any doubts, any questions, please ask your doubts in the comment section below. And also if you like the particular part of the session, please tag that timeline in the comment section below because that will be helping everyone. All right. Thank you everyone for watching this session. I hope you really found it useful. If so, hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel because I'll continue bringing more and more Java microservices and Spring Boot related sessions here. There are many more sessions available on this channel related to Java, Spring Boot microservices and also Spring Security. So feel free to explore them and also share the channel and session detail with your friends, family and colleagues because that's how we'll grow more stronger together every day. Thank you once again. See you in the next session. Bye for now.